So is my screen visible to you all?
Yes, ma'am, your screen is visible.
Okay, so I'll just make it full screen. Thank you, and I think a lot of what I have to say has already been covered by Dr. Umesh and Dr. Bapna, but yet I'll focus in on the role of adjuvant chemotherapy in endometrial cancers. And we know about, we had this initial type 1 and type 2 classification. And however, today from there, we have moved on to the TCGA classification where we have the POLE, which is the ultra mutated, the MSI high, and the copy number low, and the P53 mutated. I would just want to say here that most of the serous carcinomas that we see are the ones which are P53 mutated. Amongst the endometrioid cancer, so you'll have very few serous carcinomas which are otherwise. Amongst the endometrioid cancers, so that is a whole spectrum where usually they can be either poly ultra mutated MSI high or copy number low. And one for our students, I would just like to say that, one might wonder why with so many mutations, a cancer has a good prognosis. And the reason is that, there are so much mutation, there are so many mutations that, this cancer can hardly survive. And also that these ultra mutations, so the whole DNA is jumbled up, and uh, because of this, there are many new antigens which are formed, and these are poly or ultra mutated tumors also have a lot of tumor infiltrating lymphocytes because of the new antigens, and they are probably able to take care of the cancer in the early stages. So that is the reason why most of these ultra mutated or hyper mutated tumors have a better prognosis. Okay, and has already been mentioned, the poly and the MSI subtypes, they have a very good prognosis as compared to those with P53, which have a poor prognosis. And this has also been previously alluded to, that, at least the MMR or testing by IHC and the P53 is something that we routinely do. Of course, POLE requires NGS, and at TMH, we've just recently validated the POLE. So at least, even if we do not have access to POLE, what can easily be done is the MMR testing by IHC and the P53. Of course, we also do ERPR on these specimens, although that is not a part of the routine practice. Now, this has also been extensively alluded to, that this recent molecular classification has been incorporated into these ESCO-ESTRO guidelines. And what I would just here highlight is the difference from the previous classification is mainly the fact that, if a tumor is P53 mutated, even if it is an early stage tumor, like a stage 1 P53 mutated, that would come into a high risk category. So if you have a stage 2 endometrioid grade 3 tumor and it is P53 mutated, that would classify as a high risk group and would merit adjuvant chemotherapy. So, as has been also previously mentioned, the role of adjuvant chemotherapy has been looked at by these two trials, the POTEC 3 and the GOG 258. And of course, the POTEC 3 compared radiation versus chemotherapy plus RT. And the GOG 258 looked at the other, that is chemotherapy alone versus chemotherapy plus radiation. And I would just want to mention here that in the POTEC 3 included early stage cancers, which is like 1A grade 3 with myometrial invasion with extensive LVSI, or 1B grade 3 and stage 2, apart from, of course, stage 3 and serous carcinomas with all stages, including 1A with myometrial invasion, were included. Okay, and I think this has already been alluded to, that, in this, they gave in the chemotherapy arm included concurrent cisplatinum with radiation, which is like cisplatinum of 50 milligram per meter square, 4 weeks apart. And this was followed by paclitaxel and carboplatin, 4 cycles. Am I still audible? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so no. Okay, thank you. So going on to the next slide. Okay, so and what I would want to know that most of these patients were fairly well balanced in the two arms. Here, I would just like to say that in the POTEC 3, serous carcinomas were almost close to 16% of these patients. And as was previously mentioned that, in this overall, there was no difference between the chemo and the radiotherapy arms. And although there was almost like 76% versus 81% was the difference in the overall survival. However, in stage 3, there was a difference of almost 10% with the addition of chemotherapy, and from 69% to 78%, that is in overall survival. And another important thing was that when they did a subgroup analysis for serous histologies, so amongst the serous histology, we found that the addition of chemotherapy had a definite benefit over radiation alone. And as was previously mentioned, that when we looked at the impact of molecular classification in this subgroup, of course, this is a subgroup analysis. Nevertheless, if you see that, the P53 abnormal subgroup benefited with the addition of chemotherapy. The polymutant, there was no benefit of the addition of chemotherapy, as with the MMR. So I think, the maximum benefit was seen in the P53 abnormal subgroup. Because all of these patients did receive radiation, and it is very difficult to say that, if a patient has a stage 3 tumor and is polymutated, we would still consider giving them chemo radiation as of today, although that might change in the future. But presently, it is mainly if it is an early stage 1 and stage 2, and it is polymutated, that is when the risk category changes. And the other important thing was that, of course, you had more distant recurrences once we used RT alone arm. And if you look at the patterns of recurrences, again, based on histology wise, the green is the serous histologies, so they have the maximum number of distant metastases as compared to any other histology. So I think that is another reason why it is important to add chemotherapy in early stage serous histology. And of course, there was of course more toxicity with the addition of chemotherapy, but these were more acute toxicities, and with time that subsided. And we also have the long-term data from the toxicity profile of the POTEC 3, where at 3 years there was more difficulty in physical functioning and limb weakness, and in 5 years most of the things resolved except for the peripheral neuropathy. So therefore, I think if you look at the POTEC 3 arm, so mainly there is an improved PFS and OS in the stage 3 subgroup, the serous histology, and as per subgroup analysis, even in the with P53 mutation. And there is higher toxicity in the CTRT arm, but these differences were not there in the at 5 years. So now looking at the other trial of the GOG 258, this was looking at POTEC 3 looked at RT versus RT plus chemo, and here it was the other way around, where chemo RT, that arm is the same as compared to chemotherapy alone, and this was only in stage 3 and stage 4, any histologic subtype. And although they did include a small proportion of stage 1 and 2 with serous or clear cell histologies. And of course, as I mentioned, the chemotherapy alone arm included 6 cycles of paclitaxel and carboplatin. And the number of patients with serous histology was a small proportion, of course, 16%. Of course, there was no difference between the chemotherapy and the chemoradiotherapy arm. And the relapse-free survival, as was mentioned here, even in the CTRT arm, was 59% as compared to the 78% in the as compared to the POTEC 3 trial. And as was mentioned, that if you used chemotherapy alone, there was a higher rate of pelvic and para-aortic nodal recurrences. And of course, in the acute toxicities were higher in the concomitant chemoradiation arm. So chemotherapy and radiation was not associated with a longer relapse-free survival as compared to chemotherapy, but there was a higher rate of pelvic and para-aortic nodal recurrences. So then coming on to the next question of, at many centers, the POTEC 3 have used a schedule of using initial chemoradiation followed by chemotherapy, but many centers use the other sequence, that is chemotherapy followed by radiation. So does the sequence matter? Although this was a retrospective study, it largely showed that there was no difference in outcome by the sequence. Okay, and here I would also like to briefly mention about the GOG 249 trial, where basically in early stage high risk, so that is high, intermediate, and high risk early stage endometrial cancer, where vaginal brachytherapy has been plus paclitaxel and carboplatin has been compared to only radiotherapy. However, the addition of chemo plus vaginal brachy was not superior to RT alone, and they again had more para-aortic nodal recurrences in the vaginal. So in these early stages, the adjuvant RT alone remains the standard of care. And here also, even in the serous histology, the outcomes were similar. So therefore, to summarize the role of adjuvant chemotherapy. So we know that, today P53 and serous histologies are an indication to give adjuvant chemotherapy in early stage. However, if we have a stage 1A tumor without any myometrial invasion, or if you say have a serous histology in a polyp, that is an area where probably we do not need any adjuvant therapy. So even if they are P53 abnormal. So therefore, if you have a stage 3 or a stage 4A, then irrespective of histology, you need adjuvant chemotherapy. If it is a serous histology or P53 mutated, then of course it is a stage 1B, stage 2, or a stage 1A with myometrial invasion or LVSI, there you would need adjuvant chemotherapy. Presently, CTRT and 4 cycles of paclitaxel and carboplatin still remain the standard of care. We presently do not know if where we can use 6 cycles of carboplatin alone, and whether adjuvant RT can be omitted. So those are answers that are not known. So currently in advanced stages or high risk stages, we use a combination of chemotherapy and radiation. And also we need to look at patient factors. So suppose we have a 75-year-old lady with a history of triple vessel disease, who is diabetic, hypertensive, can barely walk, then and she has a 1B tumor, which is a serous histology. There is something that we really need to look at, the benefit of adjuvant chemotherapy versus its toxicity. So we need to look at both the disease factors as well as the patient factors. And also when we are looking at, we should not, one more point I would want to say in patient factors is that we look at not only the absolute creatinine value, but also we calculate the GFR, because for a 75-year-old who may be having a weight of 40 kg, even a 0.9 or creatinine of 1 may mean that her GFR is actually less than 40. So those are the things that we need to think of and keep in mind whenever we are looking at the benefit of adjuvant chemotherapy in endometrial cancers. So just highlighting that we need to balance both. And we have, of course, a long way to go in learning for endometrial cancers. And also in this current pandemic, I think what is most important is that we need to continue to hope for the best and not lose hope. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity.